Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in Fantasy Life right here on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Excited to have you all here with us on this Tuesday. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis with you for the next couple hours. We got a great show planned out. We're talking Garrett Wilson. We've got Paul Charchian coming on to talk Guillotine Leagues. It's a great day, Adam. Oh, and Cal Raleigh, our big dumper, won the home run derby. Again, a great day.
I wasn't too happy about that for many reasons. Number one, I have Riley on my big fantasy baseball team. I don't need him going deep into the home run derby and exerting all that energy. Number two, he was not on my list to win the home run derby, and I did have Junior Caminero at plus 1,500 after an odds boost. I was feeling good. He didn't even need to do much in the semifinals because Buxton hit 7. He hits 8 in a minute. I'm like, all right, he gets more time to rest. Riley was going off. Was feeling good. And no, your big dumper had to. No, that did not sound right. Cal Riley, the big dumper.
Finish the sentence. That's why I love tweeting big dumper, because some people just don't know the crossover with us and baseball. And I'm a Mariners fan. And so, sometimes people are like, what is his nickname? I was pumped. I have no list of why I'm sad. I texted you this. I was like, that was my World Series, because eventually the Mariners,
even though you had money on Caminero too.
Yeah, but I was hedging. I was like, emotionally, if I knew I was going to be distraught and sad, at least I was going to get some money, right? That was going to be fine. I was emotionally hedging.
Yeah, well, not good.
And it didn't even need to happen, because go Cal. I'm telling you, we can't have anything. Mariners fans, you have to give us this. It's our World Series. That's all we get to celebrate this year.
Looking at the way things are going, playoffs are probably not looming for you guys.
Yeah, thanks.
You said it yourself.
No, I know, but you don't have to. I don't need you to agree with me.
You just swept the Tigers, so you never know. They're only 5 out behind Houston.
Yeah, only. No, don't do this. We'll talk in August. We'll do an update there, and then going into September, and then we'll know. And it'll be sad, but we at least got the home run derby.
They actually have the final wild card right now. You know that, right?
I know. I don't count that, though. Like the one a couple years ago where they played against Toronto. No, I don't count that as making the playoffs.
Okay.
Because you have to get out of that.
Well, the Mets did last year, and they got to the NLCS. It can be done.
No, I know, but I'm saying I don't count that game as making the playoffs, in my opinion.
I got you.
Do you? Like a wild card game? I don't know.
Yeah, you're in. It's all about just getting in, and then you can get hot.
You're going to be more optimistic than I am.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. It changes from week to week with me and the Mets right now.
I was gonna say you're on an emotional roller coaster.
Yes.
Like some weeks I'll talk to you, you'll be like, "No, I don't want to talk about the Mets," and then other weeks you're like, "Yeah, going to the game." I'm like, "Perfect."
I mean, I still go in there if they're not doing well. You're not as motivated to go like in August or September if the team is struggling, especially with football going on. But I will always go to Mets games regardless.
You had some good memories at those. You went to 2 playoff games last year?
Yes. 2?
That was
no,
cool.
3.
3?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
And a watch party.
Jealous.
They did a watch party.
Oh yeah, at Citi Field, right?
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, there you go. This will be the best day ever, because Cal Raleigh, AKA Big Dumper, home run derby champ.
I just need him to continue hitting home runs in the second half.
He's not going to pull a Julio Rodriguez, and what he do a couple years ago, pull his back.
Yeah, better not.
He's going to be good. He's going to be fine. Everything's going to be great. Or they won't be, because we're Mariners fans and we don't really get that much. So it's one or the other, no in between. All right. I guess we should talk football, unless you want to keep going on baseball.
Well, we can talk football.
No, okay. All right. We do have some more news, though. This is a week where, we're getting some news. And yesterday it was Garrett Wilson. Later in the towards the evening yesterday, lands a 4-year, $130 million extension. So this is one that makes him one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. Adam Schefter had this one yesterday. Includes $90 million guaranteed, 4th most in a wide receiver's contract, and then it's the first time in NFL history that a receiver has received an average of over $31 million after playing only 3 seasons. So the Jets are looking at Garrett Wilson and saying, "You are our future. We don't want you to look around and be unhappy at all." And so, yeah, I think it's significant on multiple levels because you have a new coaching staff coming in, and they're, Aaron Glenn is saying, let's lock down our guys. The departure though of Devontae Adams does open even more things up for Justin Fields for Garrett Wilson here in 2025. So I'm curious, what your expectations are for him, and the expectations that you have for fantasy.
Yeah, he's a high wide receiver too. Last year he was being drafted as wide receiver one, late round one, and then Devontae Adams kind of took over in that second half. That hurt him a little bit, but he's always highly targeted. He hasn't missed a game. 3 straight years of at least 80 receptions, 1,000 yards. It comes down to the touchdowns. That's going to be the big difference. So he had 7 last year. His Vegas total is 4.5, which is extremely low. Then the other factor is there's already been talk the Jets are going to be really run heavy. They're not going to pass much. And we expect that with Justin Fields at quarterback. Now, a lot of people point to DJ Moore a couple years ago with Justin Fields. Like, well, Justin Fields doesn't throw much, but look what DJ Moore did. That year, 96 catches, 1,364 yards on 136 targets and 8 touchdowns. So you look at it and you go, all right, Garrett Wilson's probably going to get about a 30% target share?
Yeah.
So what team in the NFL last year had the fewest pass attempts? And if you don't know this offhand, I don't think you will get this.
The fewest pass attempts?
Yes.
Haven't we talked? Was it not the Ravens?
Nope.
Who? Eagles?
Yes.
Yeah.
So they had 448 pass attempts. So say the Jets are there, 448, 30% of that is 134. So if Garrett Wilson got 134 targets, which would be the fewest in his career, is that enough? Because again, the year that DJ Moore put up those numbers, Justin Fields had 370 pass attempts.
Mm-hmm.
That was in 13 games, though. So there was a few other games that DJ Moore wasn't with Fields. But overall, Moore had 136 targets, but he did finish with 96 catches, 1,364, and 8 touchdowns. So is that feasible for Garrett Wilson this year?
I want to say no.
Really? Okay. Well, you think the targets will be there, but not the receptions and yards?
I don't even know if the targets are going to be there. I've been watching Dwayne's projections, and it's come down every couple of weeks. It's just come down and down and down, because I think at the beginning, originally, when we got the news about Fields going over there and Devontae Adams' departure, I think it was closer to the 140 mark. But right now it's down to 128.5. And he's right there, with it, with 921.5 receiving yards and then five touchdowns.
Yeah.
Now, of course, those are projections, right? Those can change a lot, but I think it's been watching him and Friedman. The targets, especially though, watching those have come down significantly in the past couple of months.
Yeah, that's going to be the key, because if you look at his first 3 years, 147, 168, 154. So he's going to need. You would love to see 150.
You would love to see, that's the surprise. Well, it's not surprising because some people look at the depth chart, right? That's a sad receiver room. It's not. He's got no competition.
He's got to get most of the targets, even if it's a very low passing volume offense. Again, even if you just give them 448 pass attempts, which is what the Eagles had last year, lowest in the NFL. Because you got to think the Jets are going to be at the bottom. There's no question. They want to run the football. I mean, Fields is going to run. Breece Hall, Braylon Allen. So they're just going to run a lot.
They are going to run a lot. Like when we look at rush attempts, Fields is second behind Jalen Hurts for our projections. And again, these are at fantasylife.com, but he's projected for 140 rush attempts. And Jalen Hurts is at 145. So you've got, and then the rushing yards, like he's way up there. You've got 826 rushing yards on the ground for Justin Fields projected, which comes out to 6 touchdowns on the ground as well. But then you look over, like you said, he's never been this prolific passer. So that's not something we're thinking that he's going to morph into overnight, but expectations that maybe he does get better. Because we did see a glimpse of it in those 6 games with the Steelers. Like it wasn't all bad through the air. But again, you look at a 64% completion percentage, 2,869.5 passing yards projected, and 409 pass attempts from Justin Fields for 2025.
That's low. I mean, that's a little bit lower too than what Philly did last year.
Yeah, it's not good. I think that puts him in the range. Like if I look at I'm going to sort by pass attempts. And again, these projections are all live at fantasylife.com. So you can go to the fantasy tab at the top, go to tools, and then projections is at the top of the page, and you can sort by whatever you want to check out. But 409, yeah, that puts him 30th among qualified
Yeah,
quarterbacks.
and I think that's the expectation. They are definitely
Yeah,
going
for
to
sure.
be at the bottom or bottom three in pass attempts in the NFL. So, but you got to figure that Garrett Wilson is going to get about a 30% target share. So,
Mhm.
I gave the example with the math of 448 last year because that's what Philly was the lowest. So, if you're lowering it even more, then yeah, those targets are going to be in the 120, 125 range. So, yeah, then I got to think then that Garrett Wilson is someone based on those rankings that people are not going to draft then.
I don't know how I'm looking right now because I don't think any of that is baked into his ADP right now on Underdog. Like I think people are believing that because of maybe the college connection, like he's wide receiver 16. We
I
haven't
th-
gotten a season like that from him yet ever.
I think part of it is, and I kind of mentioned this yesterday, that range of wide receivers, they all have warts, and you're trying to just decide how to rank them. Like that's the problem. Like all those receivers in that
A
area,
little
you're
bit of
like,
a red flag. I don't
yeah,
know, Devontae, I have Devontae Adams ahead of Garrett Wilson this season. Do you?
no,
You don't?
I don't. No,
Oh, you don't want Devontae Adams?
I didn't
Marvin
say I
Harrison
don't want
Jr.
him. I have Garrett Wilson higher. But after doing this math,
I was
it's
gonna say change it
but
up.
but again, like DJ Moore had that season with Fields. I mean, why
That's
can't
true.
Garrett Wilson do it?
No, exactly. I'm with you. I'm not drafting Garrett Wilson, but I'm understanding when I am pressing the draft button that there are different outs where this doesn't, work out as much as you'd want it to. Because I mean, Garrett Wilson, when we look at his, his past finishes in fantasy, that those also haven't wide receiver 30, wide receiver 32, most recently wide receiver 20 in PPR points per game. Like it hasn't been stellar, right?
That is true. I see. Last year I see 17th in points
Okay.
per game with PPR. But yeah, that range is so close. Like it's decimal
Mhm.
points with the guys around him. So yeah, that was disappointing. That's the thing. We have been drafting Garrett Wilson higher than where he finishes. It's because of the talent and he's the number one, but that offense has been a big problem with the quarterback play. And then with Fields coming in and the lack of pass attempts, it is going to be a problem. Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago he was a disappointment, and I think what
Yeah.
happened last year is Aaron Rodgers fully healthy. You're like, okay, Wilson's going to be the guy, and then they trade for Devontae Adams, and then Adams took over in the second half.
I just like I still think, and yes, you're right that this range when we look at probably wide receiver 15 on because that's where it starts with Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Adams. There are a little bit of a red flag with any of these pass catchers, right? And like I said, Garrett Wilson is wide receiver 16. I just look at that price though, and I just think that's a really expensive price to pay for any wide receiver that could be involved with the NFL's least productive passing game. I just figured that maybe with that price baked in, and I know what Justin Fields was able to give us with DJ Moore a few years ago. Like I know that finish is still a potential possibility. I just thought that the price would be a little bit cheaper, but I think people are in on believing that, and I'm in on believing that Justin Fields is going to be good this season as well. Through the air, maybe not as much as I am, with his legs and the production he's going to give us on the ground. But I don't know. I just thought that Garrett Wilson would be closer to wide receiver, 19 than he is closer to wide receiver 15.
Yeah, I think people are just looking at it that he's the one. Also, the talent, right?
Oh yeah,
Everyone looks
extremely
at the
talented.
talent and they go,
Yep,
he's the
and
number
he's young.
one in the
Yep.
offense with a receiving depth chart that just is brutal. So they're just looking at going, all right, he's going to get most of the targets. And already seen Fields be able to make DJ Moore have that great season. So I think that's what people are looking at. And I also think it is also you 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 could change your order of the wide receiver two range on a daily basis.
Yeah,
Like there's
absolutely.
no
Yeah.
clear cut order for those guys. So, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely some concern with Garrett Wilson when you start doing the math and break down the pass distribution.
Yeah, sorry to give you those. Again, those are fluid though. Like those change a lot. Like I said earlier in the offseason, I think he was closer to a 140 projection for targets than he was to what did I say 125 or something like that. So they change week in and week out, and we could see the connection in training camp. They could build on the chemistry there. Like I said, everyone knows like old college teammates. That has a little bit to do with it too. And again, I'm not out on Garrett Wilson.
You're
just
out. Come on,
I'm
make a
not
definitive
out.
statement.
No, I'm really
Everything you
not because
said, you're out.
because I've drafted him in this range. I am not out because the way that we build our teams, I'm taking a lot of these guys in this range. Devontae Adams, I'm higher on him, not Marvin Harrison Jr. I've taken more T. Higgins, but I'm not out. I'm not.
I wish Harrison was cheaper.
He's wide receiver 15.
Yeah, I can't do that.
I can.
I know you can.
Totally honest. I'm going to be totally honest. I can. He was again another player close to my breakout. We have our breakout article that's out on fantasylife.com. I was close to putting Marvin Harrison Jr. Fool me once.
So, okay. I know underdog the receivers go higher, but would you take Garrett Wilson in round 3? Because he does fall there sometimes.
Yeah, the end of round 3, absolutely. That's why I'm saying I'm not out. I totally believe that Garrett Wilson could have, but DJ Moore, when he was with Justin Fields, it wasn't a top 5 fantasy finish, right? It was still good. It was, but he finished as the wide receiver 9 overall, right?
Which, yeah, I don't know.
Which again, still 9? Good.
I can check real quick.
I think it was closer to 10 than it was 5 or 3.
But would you be disappointed with that with Garrett Wilson?
No, not at all. Because again, going off the board, wide receiver 16.
All right, so
I'm again just disappointed in the price.
Points per game, DJ Moore was 8th that year in PPR.
Okay,
overall, he was 7th. So I mean, you would, based on the price for Garrett Wilson right now, you would take that in a heartbeat.
1,000%. Do you have his targets? How many targets did he get that year? Sorry,
DJ Moore?
Yeah.
136.
Okay. Doable.
Yeah, I think
I said 128 for Garrett Wilson.
He had 8. So that's the key is going to be the touchdowns. DJ Moore had 8 touchdowns that year, and he played all 17 games. Garrett Wilson career high was 7 last year. So
we're projecting him at 5.
Yeah, and the Vegas total is 4.5. So those totals don't mean everything, but when you look at that for a wide receiver 1, you're like 4.5 touchdowns. Because I saw that and I'm like, oh, that's an easy bet. Then I went and looked at Garrett Wilson's career stats and I was like, wait a second, 4, 3, and 7? He's been under in 2 of the 3 years?
Because of how much we talk, and it's again the talent. Like we always talk up Garrett Wilson because we know he's the wide receiver 1. Well, until Devontae Adams comes to town, but he's the wide receiver 1 on a team where we just say he's going to get peppered with targets. But like I said, his previous fantasy finishes, it's kind of like how you and I talk about we forget how old or young some of these guys were. But when I saw wide receiver 30, wide receiver 32, and wide receiver 18 last year in PPR points per game, like. Not phenomenal. If we took just straight up the projections that we have for Garrett Wilson for 2025 and put him against everyone else's projected fantasy finishes in half-point PPR, he'd come out as the wide receiver 33.
Okay, so you're out on him. You keep bringing up stats that say don't draft him.
No, I'm just letting you know. I just want to inform everyone. I want to inform everyone. Because again, it's fluid. It's just projections. Like how many weeks do we see some of these receivers just get really hot and we say, wow, this, like Adam Thielen. We talked about Adam Thielen way too much last season. It was just one of those things where guys get hot, and we wouldn't be surprised if Justin Fields on a new team with a good coaching staff behind him, with nobody waiting in the wings to take his job, just flourishes. I would not be shocked about that. So that's why I'm saying I'm not fully out on Garrett Wilson. I just wish his price was cheaper. What does Ian Hartitz always say? Don't hate the player, hate the ADP.
Oh, of course.
I just wish he was a little bit cheaper.
No, and
I'm still taking him.
Anyone will say Garrett Wilson's really talented, and for those that are saying, hey, you just can't draft him, it's because of the situation. And it matters in fantasy. We talk about all the time. How much what's the target share? What's the carries? All that stuff matters. What's the pace of the offense? Is it a pass heavy? All those things matter because, yes, there's talented players across the NFL, but some of the most talented players are in bad situations for fantasy where they're not in a position to put up the stats we want. And I think it's easy to just say, yeah, Garrett Wilson's not going to do it. But I also think you have to look at the other side where we saw a similar situation where DJ Moore was able to excel. And that's the question. Yeah. Is Wilson worth the price? Can he get there? And then on the other side, it's like, well, he's been in a similar scenario for 3 years with the Jets and has not lived up to his price in drafts.
Listen, if people listening are out on, or anyone, if anyone is out on Justin Fields, then you're going to be out on Garrett Wilson at this price. Like if you don't believe in Justin Fields, then yeah, there's no reason for you to take, a wide receiver 16 in that range. That's all I'll say. Can you imagine though if Breece Hall doesn't really step up into that role that they need?
Well, he's going to get every chance.
Well. I know he is, but we've got half PPR points per game by year. 2022 he was the RB8, 2023 RB6, and then last season it was the RB17. I've taken a good amount of Breece Hall.
Yeah, he's pretty cheap at this point. I'm interested to see if his price rises a little bit.
I think it will. Get him. I've been trying to get him while I can because I think people are just gonna, catch on and just say he should not. RB12 though. I mean, he's getting more and more expensive each day.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair price for him.
No, it is. It is. It's okay. That's why we draft early though. So again, want to shout out the projections from Dwayne McFarland and Matthew Friedman. Those are at fantasylife.com. So yes, we've got all those projections ready for you for not only the 2025 season, we've got week 1 if you want to see them. So fantasylife.com to go and do that. SXM20 gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Plus subscription. We've got tier 1 or tier 2. And like we said, for the last couple of days, I was going to say few weeks. We haven't even been on a few weeks, Adam, but the upgrades to the website are phenomenal. So again, you can make sure to go over there, check out the rankings, check out everything that we have to offer over there. We're going to continue on. Wanted to finish out and talk about some of our breakout players. We mentioned 2 yesterday, and I want to mention 2 more today. All the rest are at fantasylife.com. Articles 100% free. So we're going to give you those names here coming up next. Fantasy football is life right here on Fantasy Life, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you at KValenzuela17, at Adam Ronis over there on X on Twitter. If you got questions, you can send them our way over there. If you can't get through on the phone lines, 888-963-2682 to call in, or you can press that new call-in button on the Sirius XM app. We've got the rest of our breakout players, Adam, because yesterday we went through quarterback, a receiver, I believe. I'm not going to give you the names because people have to go to fantasylife.com to find them. You see what I do there?
I see.
You got to go 100% free.
Smart. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Oh, right. That's why, just best friends on the radio. It's fine. Let me bring one of my guys up because Calvin Ridley, when I looked at my exposure recently, I did not expect to see as much Calvin Ridley as I did. But then, looking through it, I wasn't necessarily mad about it. And Calvin Ridley for a potential breakout player, I know people might roll their eyes and be like, come on, what are we doing here? But we didn't want to give you the, the Marvin Harrison Juniors of the world. We didn't want to give you the clear cut names of guys that could be better. But with Calvin Ridley and the Tennessee Titans, like I look at this team and I say, hey, I remember telling you on the air, maybe a couple months ago, I said, are we not talking about Cam Ward enough? And you were like, no, we're talking about Cam Ward fine because Cam Ward, when we compare him to other quarterback classes, not as phenomenal of a player coming into the NFL, but for Calvin Ridley, he led the league in air yards and ranked 6th in downfield receptions last season, and that was with bad quarterback play. So for a part of me, I look at Calvin Ridley and I say to myself, if there's a possibility that he is able to kind of convert all of that missed opportunity or that all that opportunity that he got last season and able to come down with that, I think that he could give us some fantasy goodness. And I think that it's easy to look at his price for me and say, okay, wide receiver 32 in that range. Like I believe that he really could, with the depth chart that they have, with the potential that they have with Cam Ward, that he could come up and really outperform that ADP that he currently is at. So Calvin Ridley breakout. I know it's a weird name. I know it's like not the typical guy we usually talk about, but I just really like his price and I like the opportunity that he has on this team.
Yeah, I don't think it's weird at all. I mean, the price to me is too cheap. I do wind up getting him a lot as well. And typically it says my wide receiver 4. I definitely have him higher than 32 in my rankings. So, yeah. The way I build teams too, again, as a wide receiver 4, I mean, that's a really good price where he's the number 1 target in his offense, especially if you expect Cam Ward to be good or be competent, right? Yep. We know how bad Will Levis was last year. It was brutal. So Ridley's in a spot where you mentioned the air yards and the downfield target. So if he can just convert a little bit more of that, I mean, you're looking at a pretty good season. So yeah, I definitely think Ridley is someone that you should be looking to draft, especially at his price. I mean, he's not expensive.
No, he's really not. And that's why I'm more surprised, but I understand it. You look at this we look at this team a lot and we say, "Okay, yeah, it's the Tennessee Titans. What are we doing here?" But again, wide receiver 32 for me. If we're looking for breakout players that aren't necessarily breaking the bank, then Calvin Ridley is the guy that you look at in that range, like you said, because wide receiver 32 puts him around Zay Flowers, Travis Hunter, and then when you go down, Roma Dunze, Jawan Jennings, Chris Olave. Like I said, I've taken him a lot in that range. Almost not every time, but a lot. And I'm happy about it. I like it.
Yeah, no, I
Cam
am
Ward
too.
season. Yeah, Cam Ward season. I think he could be good. Another one that I saw when you wrote him up, I was like, oh, I don't know if we can do this again. I don't know if we can do this. I loved talking about Josh Downs last season, but the more looking into it, Josh Downs for a potential breakout season isn't out of the realm of possibility, especially with the stats that you gave and what he was doing with Joe Flacco last season. So what do you think about Josh Downs for you?
Yeah, look, we know the talent, and I think the immediate reaction is, well, the quarterback is a problem. And believe it or not, if Daniel Jones is the starter, it's going to help Josh Downs. We've seen with Anthony Richardson the inaccuracy, but Downs still put up good numbers even with Richardson at quarterback. It wasn't as good when Flacco was the quarterback, but yeah, because he averaged 15 and a half PPR with Flacco at quarterback last year with Downs. And, he gets open, good. He's great at separation, and he does well after the catch. So as long as the quarterback can get him the football, and he's cheap. So even if you draft him and it doesn't work out, maybe Richardson winds up being the quarterback and doesn't improve, it's not going to crush you. I mean, basically all those Colts receivers. And obviously there's a reason why, because we saw last year when Richardson was quarterback, it was tough to play any of these guys. But it seems at this point that Daniel Jones is going to wind up being the starter.
It feels like it. I don't know. I had to pump the brakes on that because Anthony Richardson told us a couple weeks ago that he was good for training camp.
We'll see.
So I don't know. It's crazy that is you said this last week, but it is crazy that we are saying the words we hope Daniel Jones is the week 1 starter because that really but realistically that does just it it would be good for every single receiver if we had Daniel Jones there, which is unfortunate. We hate to say it, but Anthony Richardson, like he has the league worst intermediate area accuracy. So when we're talking about Josh Downs and what could be and what he was able to do, like you said, with Flacco last season and the potential that he has there, yeah, we're gonna want Daniel Jones, which again is nuts. But
and the Colts still handled this very poorly. They really haven't.
Yes, it should be Richardson no matter what because they spent the
They
draft
knew
pick on
this
him
when they drafted
yes.
him 4th overall that he didn't have a lot of experience, so you were gonna have to give him time. So the way they have botched this is crazy because they clearly don't have any confidence in him at all.
No.
And look,
But he was coming out of college with not a lot, not a lot on his resume. They knew that as well. That's the other part for me. I'm like, you knew that he didn't play a lot.
Yeah, if you're going to make that pick, you have to be invested and say, all right, we're going to give him some time. We know he doesn't have a lot of experience. He's going to need to learn at the NFL level. But they brought in Daniel Jones, and all the comments and all their actions show, yeah, we don't believe in this guy. And look, he may not be it, but why take him 4th overall if you're just going to bail that quickly?
Yeah, you gotta give him a chance. I agree with you there, but it's the what have you done for me lately league. It's just there's a lot of pressure, and it's wanting to win now and not really having the patience like we've seen with some other teams. The one I always bring up is the Lions and how they were patient in that rebuild, but a lot of other teams and ownership don't really want to go that route, unfortunately. So we'll see. We're still rooting for Anthony Richardson. We're just not drafting him or hoping he's the week 1 starter. It's great. I don't know if I can say that again with a straight face, but we'll have to watch that camp battle. But I like those two a lot. Again, this article is live at fantasylife.com, 100% free. So you can go and check it out. While you're there, you can also sign up for that newsletter in your inbox 7 days a week, also 100% free. We talked a little hero RB strategy yesterday, Adam. I want to make sure we cover the zero RB strategy. How many receivers should you have through round 6 through round 10? Who were some running back backs that you should be targeting this season as well. We're going to give you all those names coming up next. Going through zero RB strategy. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about hero RB strategy, making sure you've got that anchor running back in the first couple rounds, and then going ahead and doing getting those elite receivers, making sure you, or an elite tight end, whichever direction you want to go. But today, Adam, want to talk about that zero RB strategy, the way that I usually draft, depending on, we always go into a draft and we have somewhat of an idea of how we want to attack it, but we always just have to be, fluid and able to change at any moment's notice, especially in drafts where, that things usually aren't going to go your way. So zero RB, Adam, when we talk about this strategy, it's essentially, I'm sure everyone has guessed it, you go zero running backs for the first handful of rounds in your draft. And when you do this, you are expected and you hope to get these elite receivers. You compare it with an elite, either quarterback or tight end. I don't usually go both, when we're talking about the first few rounds, but it is able to get you great production from high-end wide receivers. And then once you're done doing that, you go ahead and you start stacking up your running backs, late round running backs that have the potential to not only outperform their ADP, but you look at these guys and you say, okay, some of these backfields aren't necessarily as clear as the ones that we know with Saquon Barkley, with Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs. Like, some of these backfields, you want to embrace that there is chaos and there's a little bit of unknown. So, it's one of my favorite ways to draft. I know that you and I talk about it a lot, especially on Underdog. That's why when we talk about drafting on Underdog, that's why you see so many receivers pushed up so high, is because a lot of those drafters are going zero RB or hero RB, but making sure they get elite receivers through the first 6 rounds.
Yeah, it's definitely a strategy that can work. I mean, any strategy can work, obviously, if you get the right players.
Good players.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. But last year, people will say it didn't work last year. I don't think that's true. Obviously, a lot of those early running backs really hit. So if you did bypass them, it did hurt a little bit, but there were still plenty of running backs that you could have gotten late that really came through for you. So, Chase Brown was one, Bucky Irving. So you could have still employed that strategy. Now, it might have been tough for a team that had like Saquon Barkley, and,
Derrick
Henry, Mixon, Kamara, Jacobs. The list goes on. But there were still some that you could have gotten late that did hit. And, especially, Bucky Irving, it took a while, but down the stretch, he was a difference maker. So you can do it. And especially this year, I think you will see more people go back to it, because the other factor is a lot of the receivers that were part of that strategy went down with injury. So it was a tough year, but we've seen many years that it works. So I have no problem, especially this year. There's depth at running back, because you had a lot of good rookies come into the league, and you have some backfields where it's going to be a split. And we all know, obviously, if the starter or the primary ball carrier gets injured, then the backup is going to soar. So I think you can definitely employ the strategy this year.
Well, and that's why running back is a unique position when we talk about it from a fantasy football angle, is that you can quickly find new, I don't want to say stars, but like, you can find new guys for fantasy in the running back position that are just going to step up in a moment's notice. And you don't usually get that when we're talking as much about wide receivers. It's just one change when you look at a depth chart and you say, okay, well, this guy now needs to step up. Example being, we can do Christian McCaffrey last season. Like, how many times do we just say, all right, we'll just go and get the next man up, because it's next man up mentality, and they're going to continue getting at least a good amount of that workload, not CMC-esque workload, but you were able to do that with, the Garendos, everything else that you saw with them last season. So they're able to step up and be really good fantasy performers. Tajay Spears was one last season where during the fantasy playoffs, I believe, if you had him, I mean, he was helping you win a championship. So it changes so quickly in the NFL, but especially for running backs in fantasy. That's why we always like to make sure that we load up on even late round running backs. Even if maybe we're not going zero RB, we make sure to take a shot, because there's a better chance for those late round running backs to hit than later round wide receivers buried on a depth chart.
Yeah, just go look at the points per game leader at wide receiver last year, and they were all drafted early. It's really difficult to find a guy in the double-digit rounds who is just going to finish near the top. Now, I know you get people going to say Puka Nacua as a rookie. Okay, cool. But I did draft him that year, but not across every single league. And no one saw that coming. But look at last year. Jamar Chase, Chris Godwin, T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans. Where were they all drafted? Early, top 5 rounds. You even go down further. Rashee Rice, Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown. I mean, Brian Thomas, who was 14th in points per game at PPR. I remember getting him around 7 or 8. Maybe that's generally where he went, right? Maybe a little bit later. Then after that, Terry McLaurin. So all these guys go early because we know pretty much where the targets are going to go if these guys stay healthy. Whereas in the running backs, you usually have more injuries. We didn't see it last year as much. And you just have guys that can emerge. I mean, yes, people were on Bucky Irving last year, but he might have been dropped early in the season because he wasn't doing much. So people don't have patience. So it's just easier. Last year was a bad example. There weren't as many, although Chuba Hubbard was a good one.
I was going to say Chase Brown was a good one. Yeah. Chuba Hubbard. I mean, there were ones that we definitely hit. Bucky, if you were drafting early, J.K. Dobbins was a good one. Like there were. It
wasn't as many though as previous years. When you go back, I mean, some of the years, because again, a lot of guys stayed healthy last year. But if you just go back even like 2 years ago, Kyron Williams, he was number 2 in points per game. That guy was going in the double-digit rounds.
Yep,
even Devon Achane that year was not well. At least in some of the drafts in August, I remember getting him in an August draft pretty late. Raheem Mostert was top 5 that year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so you just see it more with the running backs, which is why people like this strategy and they like to get those receivers early because for the most part, you know where the target share is going to be with these receivers, where there's a little bit more volatility at the running back position.
For the wide receivers, talking about a 0 RB build. So again, you are looking at it round by round, and you're usually, for me, Adam, I think I've said this before, but I like around 4 receivers by round 6. That's usually my mark. And then, like I said, you can go for an elite quarterback. You could pair it with an elite tight end. I don't usually do both. For me, I don't usually get the Jalen Hurts and then try and get, George Kittle next, but that's usually how I do it.
Those builds usually do not pan out well.
No, those are tough.
I think the only way you can do that is if you start 2 receivers and 1 flex, or if you're in a 10-team league, right? Because then those become a little bit more valuable. So the format is important. But if you're in a league that starts 3 receivers and 1 flex, you're not going to like the way your team pans out if you take a quarterback and a tight end in the first 6, 7 rounds. It just really doesn't work out. But the other thing, too, is you got to be flexible. Like, I'm pretty sure you're the same way. You might go in with that plan, but say you're sitting in round 5 and there's a running back that you have higher that you think is great value because people have a similar mentality to you. You're going to take that running back in round 5, right? And say, all right, I'll start with 2 running backs and 3 receivers. I think you have to.
Yeah, and it's that would be Kenneth Walker is going in the 5th right now, and I've found myself, saying, "Hey,
Homer.
I don't know if I don't."
Homer pick.
Well, that's okay.
No,
He's your breakout player. What are we doing? You wrote
I'm messing
great
with you.
things
See,
about
I
that
got
man. He stirs the pot. Speaking of names, though, so do you like to take one earlier, like in the 5th round, or are you saying just be fluid? In the best case scenarios, I like waiting till the 6th if I can. Like you said, sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes you've got guys on the board that you just don't want to pass up. But let's start with the 5th round. Chuba Hubbard, Kenneth Walker, Kamara, Joe Mixon. We know who yours is.
Yeah, it's Kenneth Walker for me.
Is a target.
Yeah, it's Kenneth Walker. And just hope that the targets continue. He had the career high 53 targets last year, only 12 games. And we talked about the Clint Kubiak offense and how they want to run. It's a better fit to that zone scheme for Kenneth Walker. So, again, he was good last year before he got hurt. And I know people are going to point to the injuries, but it's not like you have to take him in the first 2 rounds.
No, you don't. And like I said, if you want the handcuff mentality, like I've got a good amount of Charbonnet this season, just in case. 6th round, Caleb Johnson, David Montgomery, Travion Henderson, RJ Harvey. My answer is always, and has been for the last few seasons, James Conner. I snatched James Conner up at this price a lot. His ADP, he's going player 62 off the board. That's mine. I don't know if you have a different one here. One of the rookies, maybe.
Yeah, I do like the rookies. Connor's fine. Like, Connor is basically like, okay, no one wants him. fine, I'll take him here, because that's what happened to me in a draft last year. I
It
think
worked out.
It was round 6 or 7 as my RB2, and that's a league too where you start 3 receivers and 2 flex, so the receivers fly off the board even more in that format. That's in the FFWC. I like that format. So Connor fell. I said, okay, I'll take him as my RB2. So yeah, it just feels that people just dismiss him. And one of these years, the age will catch up with him, because he has dealt with injuries every year of his career. Last year, now he played 16 games. He was hurt, though, I think, in that week 17 game. Yeah,
so he had the big Amari. I think it was the Amari DiMercato game that he went off, or so one of them went off.
So what happened was Connor got hurt, I think, in the Carolina game.
Yes.
And then we thought he was going to be out, and he played week 17, I think that would be. And he had 4 carries, 4 yards, and 2 receptions for 4 yards. So he clearly was banged up. That's the tough part. You know, you go through the entire season, and you're like, oh, well, he's suiting up. Do I play him? I'm sure some people probably benched him. But, yeah, he had a really good season. He is 30 years old. So some people are like, all right, well, this is the year. But he has at least 7 rushing touchdowns 4 straight years, 1,000 yards 2 straight years. So, yeah, he's fine as my RB2. I wouldn't say he's a target, but like I said, he's like in that situation where it's like, oh, okay, I need an RB2. Connor's there? All right, fine, I'll take him.
All right, I like it. I like it. Again, talking through just the zero RB strategy, and we've got really good articles on fantasylife.com if you want to go and check them out and just, see the targets that we're looking at as well. I want to continue on here, Adam. We talked a little bit about some deep rookie running back sleepers. Yesterday, we talked about Samson for the Cleveland Browns with the news of Quinshon Judkins. I've got a few more names for you that I'm going to throw out, see if you're in or out on them. We're going to give you those names here coming up next. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you right here. Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Deep rookie running back sleepers. Say that 5 times fast. You can't. You're not even going to try? That's fine. Do it later. Do it in the break.
I was leaving it to you. You're the pro.
No, deep rookie running back sleepers. I feel like that's easier than now that I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah, you're just getting in your own head.
Oh, whatever. You're stirring the pot today.
I like to
your guy
cause
didn't win the
trouble
home run, because your guy didn't win the home run derby.
Because Cal Riley cheated.
Oh, okay.
That's why
the
tiebreaker with a decimal point that they didn't even show. That's because if Brent Rucker makes it, then I win. Because I'll have either Kevin or Cruz, and I would have won. So
no, I'm sorry.
Look, if Cal Riley leads my fantasy team in the second half to a big money finish, then I will be happy. I mean, he's been one of the best values in fantasy. So to get a catcher with 38 home runs, what does he have? 10 steals or 11 now? I mean, that's insane. He's going. I'm happy for you. You had your World Series last night. It's all downhill from here for you. Just kidding. I'm rooting for a Mariners Mets World Series. Let's do it.
Could you? I actually can't even imagine that because I've got, I know what's going to happen. I know what's coming in the next couple
it would
months.
be a nasty show for a few weeks.
It wouldn't be. Yeah. Could you imagine? That'd be so fun. That'd be amazing. Rookie running back sleepers. Yesterday, we talked a bit about Dylan Sampson for the Browns just because of the news with Quinshon Judkins that we're just going to have to monitor. Got a few more names for you, though. I want to start with Brashard Smith from the Chiefs. ADP right now sitting, I think, still in the 200s, 201. Supermodel rating at Fantasy Life from Dwayne McFarland wasn't fantastic, but the backfield competition, Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco. Again, we just talked about zero RB builds. I don't have a ton of Brashard Smith, but he's definitely someone where if an unfortunate injury happens, again, with Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt's older, an older running back, there could be a chance here.
Look, it makes sense to take him in the final rounds, right? Now, he is a 7th round running back, but look at the situation. I mean, that is not a depth chart that you're fearful of. I still believe Isaiah Pacheco will likely be fine. Based on what they did, Kansas City is telling us, okay, we know he came back probably too early from that injury. You got to dismiss everything you saw from Pacheco in the second half. He just was not himself. 2 years ago, he was very good. So he's going to be the key early in the season to see what he does. Like Kareem Hunt, there's nothing there. You don't want him for fantasy. He's all volume based, and it's not great to begin with. We know Elijah Mitchell is constantly injured, so it absolutely makes sense in the final rounds, especially if you're doing, 20-round draft, the last couple
Yeah.
rounds, to take Brashard Smith, see what happens the first couple weeks, and he might be your first cut. He might be a guy that emerges in a really good offense. So you'll see all these running backs go in the final few rounds, but Brashard Smith is definitely on the radar for me.
And again, another cheap option that I've seen going around just in case, DJ Giddens for the Colts. ADP right now 191, and again, it's looking at the backfield. If Jonathan Taylor were to go down, you've got Khalil Herbert back there. But again, another player, when we're talking about these guys, like you said, it's one of your final picks in your draft, so you're not spending up on these guys. But again, when we talk about the 0 RB build, this is kind of what we mean when we say we're taking shots on later round guys, because there's a chance that a Jarquez Hunter, a Dylan Sampson, a Brashard Smith could step up if there was an unfortunate injury. So that's what we're looking at here. We're going to continue on. It's our favorite part of the day. Time for that Fantasy Life water cooler coming up next. It is our favorite time of the day. Time for that Fantasy Life water cooler. Going through all the news and notes that you might have missed there in the first hour and throughout this week. What other show, Adam, do you hear Big Dumper said live on the air? None.
Not many.
Well, probably a lot.
Maybe in the past few months for the few shows that do baseball, but
not for fantasy. Look at us.
No.
We're ready to go. As always,
really, Cal Riley though this year, man, what a god! Just keep it up for 2 more months, 2.5 more months, please.
He'll be good. He's good late in the back half of the season. That's why I said, I texted you yesterday. I said if he plays like he usually does towards the back half of the season, I said MVP. You said no, it's going to be Judge. But in my mind,
yeah, I don't.
He'll
see
be close.
Him getting it. No, Aaron Judge would either have to get hurt or fall off big time. It's really going to be difficult for him to overcome it.
That's fine. That's why I still
just look at the. I mean, if you disagree, go bet him now.
What's he at?
The last I saw Judge was around minus 1,000, minus 1,200. I haven't checked all the last few days.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not that confident, but we got the home run derby champ. So it's just as good as winning MVP, just as good as going to a World Series for Mariners fans, at least. So we at least have that under our belts. Let's go into the water cooler again. FantasyLife.com. That's where you want to go. We've been talking about projections. Got asked about rankings over on Twitter at Valenzuela at 17 at Adam Ronis over there on X. But again, we've got the rankings HQ loaded and ready. Again, you can sync your leagues over there. We've got the draft champion all ready to go as well. So FantasyLife.com, great upgrades to the website. So everything looks amazing. A lot of people worked really hard on that. So we are very proud of it, and can't tell you guys enough to go over there. Use that code SXM20, gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Plus subscription, tier 1 or tier 2. So let's get into it. Oh, and the phone number, Adam, because people have questions right now. We got to get into it. 888-963-2682, the phone number to call in. Or if you're on the app, you can press that new call-in button on the SXM app. It should be lighting up right now. And we will definitely get to your phone calls here after we go through some of this news. Talked about Garrett Wilson at the beginning, but just in case people missed it and you weren't here, Garrett Wilson was able to get that 4-year, $130 million extension. Don't listen to Adam. I am not out on Garrett Wilson. But
you can go back and listen to that first hour.
I was just giving you stats. But if you think that the stats are so bad that we should be out on him, I feel like that's a you thing. Don't hate the player, hate the ADP. I just thought he was going to be cheap. Yeah, exactly. Ani's back when he's dropping that.
That was directed at you.
No, it's not.
You don't like Garrett Wilson.
I'm not a hater.
Have you drafted Garrett Wilson yet?
Yeah, I have. That's why I can't say I'm fully out on him. Yes.
Okay.
That's why, I can't say I'm fully out.
Look,
but
I see
great.
I see both sides of it. Yeah, the projections are just not going to be great because the low passing volume for Fields. Yeah. You have to, what you're hoping if you do draft Garrett Wilson, the target share is going to be 30% in that area. The problem is the passing attempts are going to be in the 4 to 450 range. So you need a similar season to what DJ Moore gave us 2 years ago with Fields at quarterback. If you can get that, you're going to be happy. If not, then based on the ADP, he'll be a bust. So DJ Moore that year, 96 catches, 1,364 yards, 8 touchdowns. And those yards would be by far the most for Garrett Wilson. You got a good floor with Garrett Wilson, but you don't want a floor in round 2 or round 3. You want a guy that can potentially finish in the top 12. So DJ Moore did it on a points per game basis that year. Now, can Garrett Wilson do that? That's the question.
We're going to find out. Are you taking him ahead of, let me give you 3 names. Are you taking him, Garrett Wilson, ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin?
Yes. I want to say, okay. I want to, like, so Harrison's the guy where I could see him rising.
He's already expensive. He's going ahead of Garrett Wilson. So he's wide receiver 15.
So, yeah, I can't do that right now.
I know.
I can't.
I can, but
like I want to be optimistic on Harrison, and you would think, okay, they have a full year, but like they didn't change offensive coordinators.
No, but to me, when I look at that, like the chemistry was just awful. Like they just were not on the same page more times than not last season between him and Kyler Murray.
Yeah, and look, I understand the part of the problem with Harrison was if he wasn't drafted at that end of the first early second round of fantasy, the disappointment wouldn't be so high. It's just that you had, several of the other rookies going off that were drafted later, and then people invested so much in Harrison, and he didn't return anything. Yep. I mean, he was a complete. I mean, the touchdowns were there. Didn't he have 8 touchdowns?
Yeah, but wasn't there a stretch where? Hang on, I've got it right here.
Because he had games where he had. I think he had a game where he had 3.
Yes. So it was the same as when we talked about Kyler Murray. Like there'd be ups and there'd be downs.
And that's the
problem.
But
you never got consistency.
Yeah, he did have 8 touchdowns. And he had a game too where he had over 100 yards, I think, and 2 touchdowns in the first quarter.
Sounds about right. And then what happened?
He had a 0. I mean, that's the problem. The floor was so low. 3 for 21, 2 for 34, 4 for 39. It's just so many down weeks.
Against Miami, he had 6 receptions, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns against the Rams in week 2.
I think
look at
that was
the
first quarter, I think, right? Because I remember he had a terrible week 1, and then he went off in week 2, and everyone was like, see, he's back. And then
the first 3 weeks we were flying high. No, week 1 was awful against Buffalo. So weeks 2, 3, and 4 is where he had 4 touchdowns and you were getting solid fantasy productions. And then all the way until their bye in week 11. So from week 5 to 11, he had 2 total touchdowns. He had zeros against. He had to have been hurt. There's no way against Green Bay.
No, that could have just.
He didn't have any. Man.
Yeah, brutal. I don't remember if there was an injury that game. Probably not.
He had 2 total targets.
That's the inconsistency of Kyler Murray in this offense.
I know. It's brutal. But okay, so he's one that you're just not necessarily in on price. But again, going back to Garrett Wilson, just throwing the projections out. I am not a hater. I'm just saying that you can and like you said, we understand both sides of it. If someone is out on Justin Fields, then you're definitely not going to be in on Garrett Wilson, especially with a wide receiver 16 price tag. But if you believe that, here's the thing, he's not going to ever be this prolific passer. But if he is able to get those targets down to Garrett Wilson, and which I do believe in Justin Fields this season, especially as the dual threat quarterback that we love to draft going outside the top 10 quarterbacks right now, I'm in on that. Not a hater.
Yeah, look, with Fields, there's that disconnect between reality and fantasy. In reality, we know not a great passer, but for fantasy purposes, he's going to run. He's averaged 50 rushing yards per game in his career. So if he continues to do that, you mentioned the projections had him over 800 rushing yards. So if that happens, he doesn't need to be great as a passer. He just needs to be decent. And we've seen it. He's been a top 12 quarterback a couple of times in his career.
Yeah, he's done it before. Even last season, like I said, those 6 games with the Steelers, that wasn't for nothing. So he definitely still has that in him. And like I said, I think it's a big deal when you have a coaching staff that hopefully believes in you, where you don't have to be looking over your shoulder. Because that's what was happening, last season. It's like we thought that maybe with how well he could have played for those 6 games that he was just going to continue. But then it was like, no, Russell Wilson's back and healthy and good to go. And ultimately, that wasn't a bad decision, though, if we talk about that from that change with Tomlin. But Yeah, I'm excited to see what Fields can do this season. All right, continuing on here, another piece of news, and again, the phone number 888-963-2682, or you can press that new call-in button on the Sirius XM app. We haven't talked much about Green Bay and what we think of their receivers, but you had Matthew Golden here a couple of days ago, a week ago, saying that he can, quote, play anywhere on the field to help the Packers go get that Lombardi trophy. So maybe the Lombardi trophy's in their future, but I'm curious for us in our future potential fantasy football championships. Will your teams winning a championship this season have I'll throw it out to any of the Green Bay Packers receivers, or we can go with Matthew Golden. We can go with Jaden Reed because those are the two closest in ADPs right now. We can talk Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, your guy, Christian Watson, whenever he's going to return. But I think it's a really interesting conversation between Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, because it feels like people just flip, right? I know that Dwayne McFarland, we've talked about this a lot, but he's taking Matthew Golden ahead of Jaden Reed right now in drafts.
Yeah, I can see that. They're real close. The problem with Reed is we just don't see him on the field a lot in two wide sets. So that limits the his snaps on the field. Now, the other thing with Green Bay is they didn't pass a lot at all last year. And I believe part of that was Jordan Love not being healthy. He had that knee injury early in the season. It happened that Friday night game in Brazil.
Yeah, that first game.
He was never 100%. He had other injuries too. So he had 425 pass attempts in 15 games after 579 2 years ago. And it goes back to what with Josh Jacobs. They didn't want to run him like that, right? They had no backup running back. He had 301 rushing attempts. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that was the plan when they brought him in. And Marshall Lloyd was hurt. So you do see Green Bay probably go back to more balance, pass a little bit more. But as we see, they just spread the ball around so much. With Matthew Golden, you're looking at draft capital, right? We've never seen all these years, even with Aaron Rodgers, and he was rattling off all the names of the receivers that they passed on when he was there. And now they finally go get Golden here in the first round. So you would think that they're going to use him. But yeah, so I would probably lean towards Golden over Reed too, but they're outside the top 40.
They are, but they're close together in ADPs. That's why it's not, you're not spending a high pick on either of these guys. And I agree with the Jordan Love injury that it happened. Like we saw it happen and we were worried about him for the rest of the season. Like it wasn't a thing where they said, hey, he's good to go. He's coming back. Like we were nervous that he was going to miss significant time.
That happened on a Friday. So there were drafts on Saturday, Sunday, because I think I did a draft Saturday in a high stakes league. And I remember it was late in the draft. I'm like, should I take Jordan Love? I was like, it's 19th, 20 rounds. Should I? And I was like, I can't do it. Someone eventually did.
Yeah.
Not that it's not like he did anything anyway. He was a huge disappointment.
Yeah, it wasn't great. I do believe in a little bit of a bounce back there, but the player I've taken more of, not talking about the receivers there, is Tucker Kraft, because in my mind, like I look at these guys and yes, like Matthew Golden has, the first player that they've taken in the first round since 2002. He's got the good draft capital on him, but Tucker Kraft, to me, I look at this and I say, I don't think he should be 16th in projected targets among tight ends. I think if they were to give Kraft more, that's someone that we could also talk. I know he had, the breakout last season, but we could get even more from him. He's going off the board, tight end 11. So it's kind of in that range where I understand if people want to wait a little bit, or they just say, I want an elite tight end, or I'm going to wait till after tight end 12, 13 to go get my guy. But he's good. He's great at yards after the catch. He has great speed. And so to me, I just wish they would give him a little bit more, because I do think he could be that guy to really outperform his ADP. But I don't know if the team's going to do that. I did write him up though as a potential breakout.
Yeah, he had 7 touchdowns on 50 catches, so 1 touchdown every 7 receptions. Insane. Which is why, like, again, you don't need much at tight end to finish as the top 12. If you get the touchdowns, like usually 6 or more, or 60 receptions or more, and that usually gets you there. You ideally want a tight end that's going to be one of the primary targets in their offense.
Yeah.
That right? You look at the elite guys. Bowers is probably going to lead his team in targets. McBride. Kittle's kind of the exception. I mean, this might be the year he leads them, or he's 2, but he's so efficient. Kelsey's always been a guy that's been number one. That's probably not the case anymore. Andrews has usually been probably one or two, and obviously a big red zone threat for them. So with Green Bay, it feels like they're going to spread the ball around. So it makes sense. Like you said, Kraft is really good after the catch, and there's some plays that he's just wide open too.
Yeah.
They just leave him wide open.
24th in rate of targets to tight ends. Green Bay as a whole. I just think if that shifted in any sort of way, like Tucker Kraft is going to be that guy. And again, we don't want injuries, but maybe it takes an injury, maybe it takes something else, or maybe the connection between him and Jordan Love is just going to be as good, and he's going to run a little bit hot. But he was one of my guys where I've taken a good amount of Kraft compared to Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, because like you said, Matthew Golden is the other guy that I've taken a good amount of. But we'll see. Maybe they're listening to us, fans of the show, Green Bay Packers organization. They might be calling us right now.
Certainly possible. So they want your plea is more Kraft.
Yes, more Kraft, please. If you're listening, I know that you guys are. We've got others listening though. We know it for sure because we're going to go out to the phone lines. 888-963-2682. You see what I did there? Come on. Seamless transitions, Adam. Mid-season form. We're going to go out to the phone lines now. Appreciate everyone listening to us and hanging out. Let's go out to Tori in Texas. Tori, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I've got a dynasty league, and I inherited it, and I have 5 draft picks this year. My bench is Bo Nix, Malik Washington, Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley, and David Njoku. I need to know what 3 I have to drop to possibly get, I need running back and receiver, but I don't know who to drop.
All right, Malik Washington is probably one, Adam, that I hear, and I just say that might be definitely one. Bo Nix, Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley, David Njoku dropping because Tori has 5 picks in an upcoming draft. What are you doing?
Oh my goodness! So
I know I don't want to do any. I don't necessarily.
This doesn't seem like a dynasty league then. I mean, you're dropping those guys.
Because the only one that makes sense is Malik Washington.
Yeah.
But I just talked about how much I love Calvin Ridley. David Njoku is someone that we're higher on as well. Bo Nix is a young quarterback that I don't know why you would drop.
Yeah, there's got to be more to this here because, those are all guys that you shouldn't be dropping. What are we picking up to get these guys? So I don't know. They feel like there's more to this.
Yeah. Well, we can at least say Malik Washington, right?
Right, yeah. I mean...
Yeah, that's the only... And Godwin, if you want to close your eyes. I feel like you could trade, though. You could trade most... I don't think you need to drop these guys. I feel like you could put them into a trade and get
if you have an elite quarterback already, I guess Knicks, too. But, yeah, this just seems weird.
Yeah.
Dynasty? That's not a dynasty league. Maybe it's a keeper league.
I think it could be keeper, but I would try to not draft except for Malik Washington. I would try to maybe trade these guys if you really need to get rid of them. But Malik Washington's the only one I think out of that whole group that we would be comfortable dropping. Let's continue on here. Let's go out to George in South Dakota. George, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm in an auction league, $300 budget, and we get to have one keeper from the previous year at $10 over what they were drafted. I have 3 great rookies that carried me to the championship. And so I need to decide between Jaden Daniels, I could get for $14, Brian Thomas Jr. I could get for $16, or Bucky Irving I could get for $11, which would be my best choice.
Oh, wow. Congrats on the phenomenal team, by the way, because that is incredible. Appreciate you calling in, George. So $300, you get one keeper at $10 over what you bought them for. Jaden Daniels at $14, Brian Thomas Jr. at $16, Bucky Irving at $11. Who are you keeping there, Adam?
I want to see if we agree. I have mine. It's Brian Thomas for me. How about you?
Mine is Jaden Daniels.
Look, with Daniels, I understand he is really cheap because typically in a $200 cap, which is standard, he's going to go around 30, right? So you are getting a big savings, but you're going to get so many good quarterbacks cheaper. But again, I can't really argue with it too much because it is an insane discount. 14 would be good in a league with a $200 cap. Now you're talking $300.
Yeah.
I just think that a lot of those mid-tier quarterbacks go way cheaper. Like when you see the disparity between what people pay for the elite quarterbacks in an auction and then the middle to back end guys, especially if you have your eyes on someone that you think is going to be a breakout for cheap, you just save so much money there. So,
okay.
But the $14, I cannot argue with that. But I would go Brian Thomas.
Well, you've got an auction article out right now with Ian, right? Ian Hartitz?
Yeah, first tip for tips for people getting in an auction for the first time. And then I'll have another auction article coming out as well, talking about budgeting per position.
And we've got auction cheat sheets too, by the way, at fantasylife.com. One of the great upgrades that we did. So you can go over there and it's just under the fantasy football category and you can scroll down and you'll see those. But we definitely have auction cheat sheets. And then we also have some of our rankings over there as well. So make sure you go and check those out. Appreciate you calling in, George. Again, phone number 888-963-2682 to call in. We get to talk with the one and only, though, Paul Charchian. We're going through quarterbacks in Guillotine Leagues that you definitely want to be targeting this season. We're going to talk to him coming up next. We've got Paul Charchian on right now talking Guillotine Leagues. We are so excited because everything looks amazing. If you haven't gone or downloaded the app yet, make sure you go and do that. But Paul, we're talking about quarterbacks to target in Guillotine Leagues this season. First of all, how you doing? Welcome back.
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Guillotine is such a different beast, right? You can't apply the normal habits and thinking you have to draft day to your Guillotine League, or you will probably lose. Because the overall mindset, if you don't mind us talking very broadly here, Adam and Kendall, the typical mindset that we've all been ingrained to in our standard redraft leagues is we need to have a tip of the spear team. We have to have the best of 12 teams to get to the championship. In a Guillotine League where we are cutting the lowest scoring team every week, and then all their players go to the waiver wire, we are playing to not finish last. It's really the opposite end of the spear. All we're doing is trying to finish second to last every week. And so all of the risks that you need to take in a standard draft do not apply to Guillotine and will ultimately serve you poorly during roster construction. And so that changes the players that we target in our draft, including the quarterbacks.
I love it. And that's why this is going to be a fun segment, Paul, because you gave us names right before we came on. I know people are not thinking about these guys in Guillotine League. So if you want to, I'll let you do it. If you want to start from the top or from the bottom, whichever, or right in the middle, whatever, Paul. This is your segment to do what you like. But who's the first quarterback you want to highlight that you should target in Guillotine Leagues?
We'll go top to bottom. And really, what I'm advocating for is about a round earlier than all of these players would typically go. Now, a round earlier in Guillotine, keep in mind, most Guillotine Leagues, you can play with any number you want, but a full Guillotine League is 18 teams because there's 18 weeks in the season. So when we're talking about a player going a whole round early, that's got extra emphasis in an 18-team league because you're not just going 12 picks earlier, you're going up like 18 picks earlier. So the first guy, his ADP is quarterback 4 in standard. I like him at quarterback 1 for Guillotine, and that's Jalen Hurts.
Nice.
Here's why. It's the tush push, obviously. He gives you, with the tush push, those rushing touchdowns. It gives you the ultra high floor because all I need is one tush push, and Jalen Hurts has already has already kept me alive for that week. But he also gives you the really high ceiling because of 2 potential rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns in 18 full games last year. And Jalen Hurts did have 1 game that he left early. In 18 full games last year, including the playoffs, Jalen Hurts, 0 chop-worthy games.
Wow.
He never finished lower than QB 19 in a full game last year.
Impressive.
So that is part of why I have Jalen Hurts as my number 1 quarterback in Guillotine. What do you think?
I like it. Adam?
Yeah, I look the high floor every week with the rushing. I mean, that's why. On a given week, what's the lowest output he's going to get? And he always has a good chance to score a touchdown. So it definitely makes sense. And I do think you will see the passing yards go up a little bit this year, too. They had an easy schedule last year. They were in control. So I think you could see more passing from him as well. I think this quarterback that you have will surprise a lot of people just because where we see him go in redraft leagues and he doesn't really run as much anymore. And that's Dak Prescott, but 2 of the last 3 years he's been healthy, 36 and 37 touchdowns. Why is Dak Prescott a target?
Well, 36, 38 touchdowns. Those are good reasons right there. Again, we're looking for guys that won't get us cut. We want volume passers. People that are going to get us a couple of passing touchdowns most weeks. That's your 36 touchdowns right there, right? 17 game schedule, 34 touchdowns. Brian Schottenheimer, don't love Schottenheimer. But what Schottenheimer does bring is stability and a known quantity, right? He was the offensive coordinator for 2 years. And last year, the Cowboys had the third most passing plays with Cooper Rush as their starting quarterback for half of the year. There's no apparent running game salvation coming in Dallas. So volume is going to help Dak Prescott. Is Dak somebody I want to be starting in December in my Guillotine League? No. But in the Guillotine format, by then, I'll have Jaden Daniels will be my quarterback. I'll have somebody else. But Dak is going to help me for 2 or 3 months as a volume passer.
And that's why we love talking Guillotine Leagues with you, Paul, because when we look at Dak Prescott in any other format, like he is outside the top 10, outside the top 12, he's going on underdog as QB 13. So there's a reason why you just don't want to finish last. And it feels like Dak Prescott could be that guy for you. What about if we look at younger quarterbacks that did well last season? People always talk about the sophomore slump maybe happening, but you like Bo Nix in this format as well. You're higher on him.
I am. And again, this is these dual threat quarterbacks. And you have to be able to do both pretty well, by the way. You got a pretty good runner, pretty good passer. Bo Nix really turned into that person after that rough opening month. That first month of the season, we're all like, I don't think this is going to work out. And then to his credit and Sean Payton's credit, man, did Bo Nix turn it around.
Yeah.
In 11 of his last 13 games last year, he topped 14 fantasy points, making him very safe. So just 2 duds in his last 13 games of his rookie year last year for Bo Nix. He topped 20 fantasy points 7 times in those 13 games. You add in Evan Ingram, who will help. Maybe those young receivers like Mims and Vele and Franklin, maybe they get a little bit better. And Nix just gets better as a sophomore. I've got him up at quarterback 7 in my Guillotine specific rankings because he can help you 2 ways, not get cut. So I like Bo Nix here, and I think he's worth drafting at least 1 round higher than normal.
Matthew Stafford, we're not seeing him go high in redraft leagues. No one really wants him. What's the difference with him in Guillotine Leagues?
Well, the difference here is, first, I think there's too many people that are just replaying last year, and I think not taking enough into account all of the lost time with Cooper Kupp last year, which obviously hurt. Puka Nakua's absence obviously hurt. If we just look at Matthew Stafford, once he had his receivers back last year, once those guys returned from healthy from week 8 forward, Stafford averaged 242 passing yards, which is good for QB 13. And 1.8 touchdown passes per game. That's QB 6. So, Stafford going up the board right now is roughly the 22nd quarterback. I don't know. I've got Devontae Adams and Puka Nakua to throw to. That feels like somebody who should be volume safe, and the quality receivers just so high for him. I think he bounces back from an underwhelming totality of his season last year, but really I only need him to play like he did after week 8.
Yeah, the first 6 weeks he had 3 passing touchdowns, and that was without those receivers for the most part.
Right, and then after that, he turned into, by and large, a very safe fantasy asset. So if you're sloughing the quarterback position, Matthew Stafford as this guy you can get a Guillotine draft round 13, he's absolutely in play there.
And we're talking with Paul Charchian again right here, Fantasy Life on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, going through quarterbacks to target in Guillotine Leagues. If you haven't played in a Guillotine League yet, this is the year to do it. It is such a fun format to go to. Last quarterback here that we have to talk about, which I'm surprised, Paul, that we are talking about JJ McCarthy, because usually when we're talking about tips for Guillotine Leagues, you're avoiding first-year starting quarterbacks. But what makes JJ McCarthy different for you?
Yep. And again, this is all about where you'd have to take him in your draft, right? This is going to be the very end of your Guillotine League draft as your second quarterback. But where J.J. McCarthy can potentially break the rules of what we normally try to do. And some first-year passers turn out great. Jaden Daniels last year. Bo Nix, as we mentioned, ultimately turned out great. The reason J.J. McCarthy can hit the ground running is this. Has any first-year starting quarterback, history of the NFL, been dropped into a better spot to succeed than J.J. McCarthy? He goes back to pass. He looks left, Justin Jefferson. He looks right, Jordan Addison. Coming across the seam, T.J. Hawkinson. Rolling out of the backfield, Aaron Jones. And he's got the reigning coach of the year, a quarterback whisperer, in Kevin O'Connell, that's going to help him. O'Connell has put up, career best numbers for every quarterback he's worked with, right? Cousins, Darnold, Mullins, Dobbs. I mean, it feels like it's a special opportunity for J.J. McCarthy. And here's the other thing. If Thor Nystrom were on this show right now, what he would urge listeners to remember is McCarthy can run. And Kevin O'Connell's never had a mobile quarterback for more than like a game or two. He could really be sitting on a much better rushing season than I think people realize. His last 2 years at Michigan, J.J. McCarthy ran 134 times for 500 yards and 8 touchdowns. So, I think there's an opportunity here for some rushing upside as well for McCarthy. So, we're at last pick of the draft territory, your second quarterback. J.J. McCarthy, again, first-year quarterback's not normally in play. He could be.
I like that call out, Paul. Again, we went through the top targets for quarterbacks in Guillotine Leagues. You've got articles on the website at fantasylife.com. But I try and tell people every single show, Paul, how great Guillotine Leagues, like as a format is, but how great the app also looks. You can go online, guillotineleagues.com. Just want to have you be able to point people in that direction on how good it looks.
Yeah, it's it's a major refresh on the Guillotine Leagues product that you've seen in years past. And we're sort of rolling out new features as we go over the course of the summer. But for anybody who wants to just sort of like test the waters, get into a $0 Guillotine League just to see what it's like and learn about the app. GuillotineLeagues.com. You can also download the app called Guillotine Fantasy Football in the iOS store. We do not yet have the Android app. That's coming soon. But you can play on web and you can play on your iPhone.
And you know that's what we're going to be doing all off season, Paul. We appreciate you hopping on, and we get to see you next Tuesday. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, friends. Excited for this. We get to do this like 25 more times on Tuesdays.
We're so excited. We're so excited.
That's a lot of losses for Kendall when we do our game.
Whatever, please. As someone who lost all last year,
that is not true.
Please. That is true. It is. Appreciate you, Charge. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
All right, there he goes. We're talking. Why do you have to do that, Adam? I mean, come on. Like, you lost last season.
Wait, okay.
What?
We go by recent results. When we played last week, what happened?
I just wanted to give you a chance to win.
Right. That's what everyone says that loses all the time. I felt so bad because you just lost. You lose and lose and lose when we're doing the Guillotine Leagues Family Feud. And so I just said, you know what? I gotta allow him to win there. But leave Kendall alone. She's not a loser.
That was to you.
No,
what
that
are you
was
talking
to you.
about? It's Ani. You know that Ani's doing it to you.
Yeah, Ani's a big hater.
Yeah, to you. So we know who that was.
Apparently, he loses in Guillotine Leagues all the time. I heard he gets eliminated week 1, week 2. Consistently.
See, this is why that was definitely directed towards you. GuillotineLeagues.com, though, like Charge was saying there, make sure you go and check it out. The upgrades are fantastic. Got new features rolling out every single day, and we got to open up. We have to do a public league here soon, Adam, and open it up. We'll put a clock on it. We won't do 8 hours. We'll do 2-hour clock, and we'll draft some Guillotine Leagues here. But we're gonna continue on. We got to talk through team previews. As we always say, Ian Harditz does the best job when writing these out. So those are live at fantasylife.com. All teams in the NFL he's done. We're going to go through the Buffalo Bills, though. We got to talk about this wide receiver room. We have to break down maybe some regression from James Cook as well. We're going to do that here coming up next. That is hilarious. This is the best fantasy life right here. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you. If you didn't guess, we're talking about the Buffalo Bills. Wouldn't it be funny if we just pivoted, talked about someone else? We'll talk more about Green Bay. We're talking
about the Jets division, the team that's Boring.
Oh man, we're talking about the Buffalo Bills going through team previews, our expectations for teams going into the 2025 season, and again, all the write-ups here are from Ian Hartitz. If we reference anything, stat-wise, from me at least, I'm looking at Ian Hartitz's write-ups at FantasyLife.com. Did a great job with all of these team previews. I want to start. Unless you really want to talk about Josh Allen. I feel like there's not a lot that we need to discuss there. He's either 1 or 2 in the rankings and Lamar Jackson's usually the only other guy that's going ahead of him. It's Josh Allen, and he's probably going to continue doing Josh Allen things.
Yeah, he's number 2 for me. I typically don't draft a quarterback that early, so he doesn't wind up on my teams. But you never know. There could be people with a similar mindset, and maybe he lands on one of my teams, although I doubt it.
I doubt it too. But it is, sometimes I do have FOMO looking at some of these guys and saying, that would be fun. That would be nice. But
the only time I feel that way is in the fantasy playoffs when Josh Allen's putting up 30 to 40 points. Then I'm like, damn it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't think we need to stick on Josh Allen for very long, because everyone knows that if you like him, you're probably going to go draft him, and no one will tell you that that's a bad move. I think the biggest thing, because we've talked a little bit about James Cook, and we'll continue to talk about him here, but I really do want to break down the wide receivers with you. You were on Khalil Shakir last season a good amount. That was one of your guys that you really liked. Consensus Fantasy Life ranking right now is wide receiver 41. You've got Keon Coleman at wide receiver 53, Joshua Palmer at wide receiver 71, and then I'll mention Curtis Samuel, wide receiver 100. So Khalil Shakir was the leader in this offense for the wide receivers, right? Had 821 yards, 4 touchdowns on the season last year. Wide receiver 37 in PPR points per game. He did get that 4-year, $53.1 million extension this offseason. So that makes me believe, if we want to follow the money, that he's going to continue to be that wide receiver 1. But between him and especially Keon Coleman, I've seen Keon Coleman get a lot of hype this offseason as someone that could be a bounce back candidate, just because of, what was it, a wrist injury last season that seemed like it really did hinder his performance with the 2024 season. What are your expectations for either of them? Are you back on Shakir? Do you like Coleman as a bounce back? What do you think?
The crazy part is you see Josh Allen going so early, and yet none of his receivers are going in the top 40. But it makes sense. Look, they spread around the ball so much. Why would that change? Like, it's worked for the Bills. The only thing that hasn't is they have not gotten to a Super Bowl yet.
I was going to say, has it worked for them? Because
I mean, it's worked. They win games every year, right?
They do.
They need to be better in the postseason, but we saw the fewest pass attempts Josh Allen's had since his second year in the league. So they look like they're going to dominate the division again. They should be the best team in the division. Everyone's going to project them as the division winner and win a lot of games, get to the playoffs. So I don't see it changing as far as the pass distribution. They're just going to spread it out. They don't target anyone more frequently than the other. I mean, Shakir's okay. I mean, yeah, I liked him last year. He was cheap, but wasn't a difference maker. He's not a guy that you're like, oh, I got to go get on my team. Your wide receiver 4, maybe. Even then, it's like, what's the ceiling? It's not there. Like, I thought it could be a little better last year. It was fine, but it wasn't great. So,
no.
Keon Coleman, he seems like more of a deep threat. Like, I don't know if the volume's going to be there. We saw glimpses from him, but I just feel we're going to see too many games of 2 for 28, though, when they're running the ball well and Shakir has a good game and Palmer has a good game. So I don't see it with him. I just don't think that the targets are enough.
The mid-season hand wrist injury when he was sidelined for 4 weeks was tough. But then like, you come back and he only caught 10 total passes during the final 7 games. And we can say that that's from the wrist hand injury. And I know he's come out, Keon Coleman has, and said that, definitely did not leave him at 100% during the season. And he's expecting himself to do better. Like I said, I've seen him on some bounce back candidate articles, people talking about him as someone that could step up in this offense. And he does, like you said, he's the jump ball specialist for Josh Allen. That's what we saw last season. He had some good after the catch ability as well, but The only good thing about drafting this offense, though, is that if you do believe Keon Coleman could be a bounce back candidate and you want to get him at cost, you're not spending that much, and maybe he could surprise us. Because like I said, wide receiver 53 on Underdog for him, and then Khalil Shakir is wide receiver 45. They're very close together.
Yeah,
you're not spending a lot.
Well, they should be. I mean, that's the appropriate range. Just
so you're going with none of them this year?
Probably. I mean, Coleman at 52, I could see in that range. There's, they're not targets.
Okay,
they're not targets.
But if they happen to be there, if they fall past ADP, you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, with it's just the volume for all these guys is a major concern. I just don't see it changing. They're just going to spread the ball around. Whoever's open is getting the ball. They're not force feeding the ball to anyone. This is not like when they had Stephon Diggs and he was getting all the targets. It's changed since he left. They're just going to spread the ball around. And 1 week, Coleman will have a big week, and then people will be like, all right, I'm starting him next week. And then the next week, it'll be Shakir.
It's our favorite thing to do for fantasy football. It's just kind of chase the volume. I want to continue talking about this team, the Buffalo Bills, because I do want to ask about Dalton Kincaid. If you think that this is finally maybe the year that he's able to make that leap. I see you smiling, so I'm probably going to know your answer. But the big questions too, and we've gotten questions on this for the last couple of weeks because we've talked about James Cook potential regression, or if we do believe that he is going to be able to produce like he did in 2024. We're going to continue breaking down the Buffalo Bills coming up next. This is an Adam Ronis request for the song. I actually don't know this. This has to be an Ani special. Probably, I don't know this one. It sounds like Tate McRae. Yes, I was right. That's for sure a request from Adam.
Not a chance. Anyone who knows me knows. Not even close.
We'll get your music on eventually.
Yeah, right? I know. Eventually. You just control things.
It's not, again, I want to let everyone know listening that I do not control any of the sounds or anything. It's our amazing producers that do that. What would be your
Kendall
first request?
Sends them like, only play these songs. Don't play any of Adam's hip hop. That's what it says.
Yeah, see, even Ani said, Adam texted me more Tate McRae. Please.
Yeah, never. Yeah. Let's see the screenshot.
Keep it locked right here. You'll have just as good music and just as good fantasy football advice throughout the whole day here at Sirius XM. So you've got RotoWire Fantasy Sports today, Jeff Erickson, Nick Whalen at noon, 2 p.m. Eastern Elite Sports with Jeff Mans, 5 p.m. You've got Fantasy Footballers, 6 p.m. Eastern FSGA Best Ball Draft with Howard Bender. Lock in for that. 8 p.m. Eastern Football Diehards with Bob Harris and Mike Dempsey, and then 10 p.m. Eastern, you've got Smart Fantasy. So again, keep it locked right here. Great music, great analysts, and we're just getting you ready to win your fantasy football championships. It's probably not going to be with Dalton Kincaid because I saw your face. I wanted to try here. I really did. Tight end 14 in our rankings right now. I don't even think we need to mention Dawson Knox, but do we just want to move on? You're not drafting him, I can tell.
No, I'm open to it. No.
Are you?
Yeah, look, he did burn me last year, but if you remember, Matthew Berry had a column a couple months back where he spoke with a Bills source who said Kincaid's lack of production was he was more injured than people realized. So
I hate that though. Why do we not?
But look, see, it's two ways though. Like, right? A lot of times fantasy players like, well, why are you sitting out? Be tough. Go out there and play. And then when they play through injuries and their stats and production suffer, people get upset. So
No, I'm not talking about Kincaid. I'm talking about us not knowing that.
Well, he was on the we kind of knew
he was on the injury report.
Yeah.
But after the season when they say it was worse than what, was let on, that's just always the worst. Okay, so maybe Kincaid.
So, well, the price is way cheaper. So, I'm open to it. There's still a little hesitancy because I'm still like in the early stages of my Scott Fishbowl that started last week. Like it's just been, and I was about to take him and I didn't. It's been so long I don't remember if he's still on the board, but I might take him if he's still available with my next pick. So
I will say, looking at his numbers from last season, the efficiency numbers weren't terrible. Like when you really dive into those, and he demanded a good target rate. Okay, you're talking me into it. I mean, he was receiving grade, he was 8th per PFF, yards per route run, he was 9th, targets per route run, he was 2nd. This is among 31 tight ends with 50 plus targets in 2024. Not awful. Price is right.
Yeah, you probably are going to have to pair him with another tight end, though. I don't think you want to go into the season as your only tight end, and then it's a problem once again. So he's cheaper. There's ability there. The injuries definitely played a part. So again, I'm not saying go run out and get him. There's still trepidation, no question about it. But there is a chance that he's better.
James Cook, regression incoming or not, are you in or out on the price? I'll say based on the price, because I think that's the important, because we know that James Cook is good, but RB15 with the production that he gave us last season, in or out on that price?
Based on the price right now, I'm out. He is really good. He needs more touches. He should get more touches. They don't utilize him that way. So the touchdowns carried him last year. So if he gets similar volume to last year, it's going to be a problem. You're going to be disappointed. And even the passing game usage is not good enough.
Inside the 5-yard line attempts went from 15% in 2023 to 48% last season.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Like 4 rushing touchdowns his first 2 years and 16 last year. So you want to say 8? Fine. Is that good enough if he's catching 32 passes?
I'm with you. I have taken, I will say I can't be completely out because I have taken him at this price, but you have to realize, just like the Baker Mayfield conversation, that regression is probably coming. And you have to prepare for that. So
it sucks. I want to see him get more volume because he's really good.
We got to see him get paid. He still needs a contract. That's what we have to wait for sure. All right. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us today. An amazing show. Again, stick around. RotoWire Fantasy Sports Today is coming up next. We'll be back same time here tomorrow. FantasyLife.com is where you want to go. See you then.